Hello and welcome back to another video. So you see the title. I don't think you should buy the S21 Plus. And that's not because it isn't a good phone. Throughout this video, I will be discussing the many aspects of this phone in order to paint a picture of why I truly believe you should not buy the S21 Plus. Let's start with the price. So the S21 Plus is $200 less than last year's model at $1,000. This is still a pretty hefty price, and it comes with 128 gigabytes with no micro SD slot for expandable storage. To get into the phone, we have Qualcomm and Samsung's new improved ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, which is said to be 70% larger than the previous version. I didn't have as many issues with the previous version, but I did have some, where this one, I have almost no issues. One of the biggest strengths of this phone is the design. So Samsung went for a very nice looking camera bulb that almost melts into the side from the aluminum rails. In this Phantom Silver model, I think it looks very sleek, and the matte finish, despite which one you get, is very, very great in terms of leaving very little fingerprints and looking quite clean. As for the front design, Samsung went for a flat edge display, which I'm personally a big fan of because it still has very minimal bezels all around, and we have that hole punch in the top. And the hole punch is very small. I think it's the best option we have right now until we work out the kinks of the under display camera. And overall, I think this is one of the best looking smartphones out there. Now, the display is something where I usually praise Samsung. And there's a lot of great things going for this display, but for me, it wasn't as satisfiable as some of the other ones. That's not because of the refresh rate. We have 120 Hz on here, which I utilize, and I think it just makes everything look so smooth. And it's also not because of the resolution dip. We went from 1440p in last year's models to 1080p. So where's my issue with this display? For me personally, I prefer a display that looks more on the natural side. I like colors that seem more realistic to me. In the vivid mode of this phone, I find that some of the colors just look too saturated and unreal at times. And in the natural mode, it just looks so muted. So because of that, I didn't like using this display as much as other Samsung phones in the past. I feel like other ones nailed that natural mode just a little bit more. For content consumption, this phone is pretty good when it comes to the display, like I said, so that looks nice, especially with the 18:9 aspect ratio content. But where I found it to be not as good is in the speaker system. And the speakers on here aren't as good as previous Samsung models I've used. It is worth noting that it is a stereo pair though, so it's going to get plenty loud, but yeah, I haven't enjoyed this, and with previous Samsung phones, I have enjoyed their speakers. Before we move on to more hardware, let's talk about One UI 3.1. And I think that Samsung has been moving in the right direction with One UI for some time now, but One UI still has not been my favorite software skin to use. With that said, One UI has always been extremely feature rich, and there are many useful features like Samsung Dex, Bixby Routine, and the gaming enhancer. As for the aesthetics of the UI, I think with One UI 3.1, it's looking a lot better than it has in the past. As we've always seen, there's a lot of customization options, and for those people who can and like to tinker with your phone, you can really change the experience. An important category to most is the camera. And here we have the 12 megapixel main sensor, the 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor, and the 64 megapixel telephoto lens. In terms of zoom, this has been very good for me. I think it's very solid in comparison to most options. But when you aren't zooming, I feel like the stills are behind when you compare it to either the iPhone or the Pixel. With all that said, they're still very good. As for video, Samsung has been one of the better Android companies in terms of video quality, and on here, this is a continuation of that. Out of the box, it has this auto FPS setting, and I would suggest turning it off because it kind of made things look choppy for me. But after that, the video quality looks pretty good with nice dynamic range and great stabilization. Now, my favorite part of the S21 Plus has to be the battery life. So the S21 Plus features a 4800 milliamp hour battery with the 120 Hz display being able to adaptively refresh all the way down to 48 Hz. And I've gotten over over 10 hours of screen on time with the S21 Plus. The battery is just phenomenal. The S21 Plus, at least here in the US, uses the Snapdragon 888, which is a very fast and capable chip. So the performance on here is really good, and even multitasking you can do with ease. But there also is the gaming experience, and I had a good gaming experience overall when I tried this. It was able to run my games very smoothly. I might have a separate gaming video if you are interested in that. So after all that, you can probably tell that my experience with the S21 Plus was pretty positive overall. So why am I telling you not to buy it? So in the past, Samsung phones depreciate pretty quickly. So if you wanted to buy this phone new, I would suggest you just wait a little bit rather than buy now. Unless of course you're getting an insane trade-in deal. But even with that, I wouldn't suggest it as much because of the S20 Plus. Now the S20 Plus has depreciated big time in value, where you'll be able to probably get it around $500 or maybe even less, especially in a couple months. And the S20 Plus in many ways is just as good, if not better in a couple categories, than the S21 Plus. It's not as good in terms of the SoC and the design mainly, but in many ways they are quite similar. And because you can get it so much cheaper, I would say either get the S20 Plus or wait till this goes down in price. This truly is a solid phone, but it really is hard for me to recommend you buy this right now. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe if you're new, and peace.